Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to, I think it's the 24th ARC Forum. I've been coming for quite a few of them, for a long time, and some people here have been coming for many years as well. And that's for the whole forum. I get to welcome you to the whole forum. I think you'll get welcomed again tomorrow morning as well. But this part is our workshop on cybersecurity. We do all day long. We have a bunch of things. I'll explain the whole agenda here. And we started this cybersecurity thing, I think it was 9 years ago. And it was a little group of about 25 people, or if that, who got together to talk about standards and what was happening with, at that time it was ISA 99 and stuff like that. Is it 99? Yeah, ISA 99. And over the time, it's grown from one little workshop into what we have today. And often, and I think today will probably fill up completely as well. So I always tell people we get standing room only. So we're very happy with this event. I hope you get a lot out of it. We have a good agenda for you today. Oh, I'm Sid Snitkin, by the way. I lead the cybersecurity team at ARC. But these are my other colleagues on the cybersecurity team. Eric Kosman, Mark Lusev, and Larry O'Brien, and you can see them, except one thing I noticed, Eric, none of us look like the pictures anymore. If you saw my picture, my hair was all black. Eric Kosman had a mustache in the picture. Larry O'Brien, I just saw him this morning. I didn't even recognize him last night. He cut off his beard. Mark, I guess, looks the same. He's standing in the background there. Mark looks the same. But anyhow, so any questions you have, just grab any of us about cybersecurity or anything like that. And notice at the bottom I have the please silence your phone thing. I pop that up a lot because I always forget myself, so I assume other people do as well. Before I start this, I want to mention about our sponsors. For our forum, I think we probably have 40 or 50 sponsors total, which is common for us. We're real proud, though, that a lot of them are cybersecurity related, because the event here, I think, as you're aware, is much broader than cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is one aspect of it. So anyhow, I always like to call out the ones who specifically have cybersecurity interests. Now, some of them sponsor for bigger reasons than that, but some are purely cybersecurity. So, and in the exposition area that opens this evening with the reception, I encourage you to go and see their booths and talk to them. Now, let me give you the agenda for what we're doing today. Well, our whole cybersecurity program, it consists of two things. One is what we do today, which is all day. You'll see the agenda there. And then during the main forum, we have sessions. We have 3 cybersecurity sessions. 2 of them are just called Cybersecurity Part 1 and 2, case studies. And they're ones where we have end users come and give case studies, and then we have panel discussions and things like that. And then on the Wednesday at 2 o'clock, we're going to have another thing that's going to operate like what you're going to see today, our workshops, where I have a panel of people. We're going to discuss IT/OT cybersecurity convergence. We would have had that today, but we just ran out of space because we have so many things in our program. Anyhow, if you look at the top part of the screen there, and this is what's online. I just want to explain everything, though. To begin with is a session right now, the 8:30 to 10 o'clock session. And what we're going to do here is just discuss what's happening in cybersecurity, in industrial cybersecurity. And I use that term very broadly. If you sit in the sessions I'm doing, you'll get a sense of what I mean by that. And I think what we mean at ARC, it's much broader than when we started, which was the ICS/OT cybersecurity. I don't know what terminology you use. But we're going to talk, this first session, we're going to be talking what's happening in industrial cybersecurity overall. And we've got myself, 3 more speakers after me. Then we'll have a break, and then at 10 o'clock we'll have a half-hour break, and then at 10:30 we'll get back together. And at that time, during that break, we're going to split this room in half. And the people on this side is track 3, and the people on that side is track 4. So when you look at the agenda to pick what sessions you want to go to, track 3, we're going to have one that I'm going to moderate, which is enabling secure digital transformation. And at the same time, Eric Kosman's going to do one on ICS/OT cybersecurity standards and guidelines. Then we're going to have a break for lunch. We finish, I think, at 11:30. No, I guess it goes till 12. Excuse me, 10:30 to 12. And then we have lunch from 12 to 2. And we're providing entertainment. At least I'll phrase it that way. And what we have is an opportunity for some of our major sponsors to give presentations. Now, I've asked them, and I think everybody will do it just fine, to focus more on issues. steer away from sales pitches. I've warned them that most people, if they start hearing a true sales pitch, they're going to get up and walk out. So I think but these are companies that with expertise in certain areas, and I think they can talk about those issues, and I think it could be very educational. So we have track 3 will be Fortinet and Nozomi Networks and AT&T, and then in track 4 we have Irdetto and OWL Cyber Defense. So track 4 is over there, track 3 is over here. Hopefully I'm doing this right. I always get this backwards. No, you're right. Okay. And I'm not saying left or right, because then you got the issue, is it my left or your left? So that side and this side. And then after lunch, and the way the lunch works again is we have box lunches. So you go out, get a box lunch, and it's really something so you can come in here, sit down wherever you like, and just listen. That's why I call it entertainment during lunch, okay? Then at 2 o'clock, we're going to have some more workshops in this side. I'll be moderating again, and we're going to have one about defending systems against sophisticated attackers. And then on that side, we're going to talk about what's happening, trends in industrial IoT security. Eric will be doing that one again. And then we're going to try something new. This is something we've not done before. At 4 o'clock, we're going to only have track 3, right? We're going to have this room. And we're going to take the room, the way it's laid out now, and we're going to form little tables. We call them round tables, but they'll be square tables. And the idea is we find that oftentimes, even in the panel discussions, like the session now we're going to have, there'll be some presentations, then we'll have a panel discussion. And we encourage all the questions to come from the audience, from the attendees. It's not for me to feed them, it's for the attendees. But here we find that oftentimes they want to talk about that topic a little more. So we've kind of defined the topics that you see in those workshops. And at this 4 o'clock session, we're going to have roundtables where we're inviting people to get together and interact and network. You know, one of the big benefits of this whole event is networking. And I don't mean that just for suppliers to meet end users, but it's a lot of end users get a lot of value by interacting with each other. So this is a chance to discuss that. And I have a whole slide on this. I don't know why I'm talking so much about it. And I told you about the other sessions, but let me go to the slide about the roundtables. And so the idea is going to be open discussions. You're free to participate in any roundtable. All we'd like to know is, you know, sometime during the day, if you could let Mark or Eric or Larry or me know that you're interested in a certain topic and a certain issue, then we can collect that information. And then when the time the roundtable comes, we're going to try to have facilitators at every table. Mark is holding up cards back there. So anyhow, we're going to collect the topics as well as issues. I call them topics and issues. And then we'll collect them, and then we're going to try to find moderators for each table. I mean, I'll probably do one, and Mark and Eric, but we'll probably pull in some of our friends that we know from a long time who've come. Where's Glenn? Idell, you're going to be you'll be a facilitator. I didn't ask him before, but I just ran into him in the hallway. Anyhow, so we'll have people that moderate. And again, it's an open discussion. Suppliers are invited to participate, but oftentimes at ARC, when we have these kind of things, we'll do them as user only, because users like to discuss issues. Again, you know, you have this issue that you have suppliers who are very knowledgeable about certain topics, who can really add to the discussion. So you're invited to come if you're a supplier, but you know, again, we just ask no commercialization here in the thing. The point is not commercialization. It's an opportunity for them to know what really you're concerned about. But then, you know, they're there if they can offer some advice if that opportunity arises. So anyhow, and we'll have tables, and we're going to have these tables set up, and we're going to have like each table will have a certain topic. And what I mean by topics and issues is right here. Right now, if you look at the sessions we have this general session, so we're going to have a table for just general sessions, general discussions. So I don't care what the topic is. And there's some examples of the kinds of issues that maybe we're not recommending those, but you know, somebody might say, what's the best methods for assessing cyber risk? You know, what are the best ways to justify cybersecurity to management? Then we're going to have one on standards. And, you know, what cybersecurity standards are the best? A lot of people, I think, I know the answer most people would give anyhow, but to discuss that. You know, what additional guidance? The standards people are very interested in knowing what more do they need to do. We're going to have one on defending systems against sophisticated attacks. We're going to have one on IoT and digital transformation, and one on IoT, OT, cybersecurity convergence, which we won't be talking about today. But anyhow, those are the main topics, but we're looking for questions to drive the discussion, okay? So during the day, if you have any questions and on those topics, you know, if you give them to Mark or any of us, Mark has those cards, that would be wonderful. As well, if you want to suggest another topic, that's fine too. We're going to end up here probably with 10 tables, so we'll probably have multiple tables talking the same issue. And people will be free to get up and move around. Anyhow, that's what we're going to try to do. We have not done that before, so we'll see how that works out. Okay. Now, I think this is the last logistics slide. I don't know if you have our app on your phone or on your iPad. There's a forum app that's very helpful. Actually, it's Zarista is the name of the company that makes the app. And it has all the events, it has all the people in there. If you want to connect with people, it has information to help you do that. It has information about all the sessions. You can develop a schedule on. But anyhow, on every one of the sessions, you're going to see where I have it circled in red. You probably can't read it, but this is the screen for this session we're having right now. I just made a copy of my iPhone. And that little thing down there says, please provide us your feedback about this SES, and then it's an arrow. If you click on that, it'll take you to a survey where we would like to get feedback on you. You know, it's basic questions. How did you rate the session, that type of stuff. But anyhow, and it's for every session. We highly encourage you to give us feedback. That's the only way we can do what the people want us to do, rather than grabbing me at the bar and saying, you know, Sid, you should do this or that. I mean, that's wonderful, but we'd also like feedback on what we are doing. Okay, now that was all the housework or logistics. Now what we're going to talk about, we're going to go into this discussion of what's happening in cybersecurity for industry, infrastructure, and smart cities. That's how we phrase what we do cover at ARC, is those areas. And I'm going to start it off with a short presentation. I'll try to keep it short. As you can tell, I like to talk, and I didn't practice this one, so I have a tendency to drift if I don't, so I'll try to keep it short. Then we have some speakers following this, and I'll explain who they are in a moment. Anyhow, so from our point of view, watching the market for cybersecurity, and like I said, I've been doing it for 9 years at ARC, and so we've got a pretty good view of what's happening. You know, when we first started this stuff, we talking about ISA 99 and the need, as I mentioned earlier. And today, most companies, I think everybody knows what to do. It's a question of getting them to do it and things like that. With respect to protecting plants, internal plants, I think that's a well-defined situation. There's challenges. It's not like it's not challenging, but people know what to do. The problem today, though, is the whole problem is getting bigger and getting harder. And we see, you know, number one, we're seeing the threat landscape getting more tough. You know, the sophisticated attacks in particular, which I'll be talking about in one of the sessions, is really dangerous. We also see, so one thing is what's happening from the outside, and these are the more challenging threats environment, but we also see a lot of changes happening within plants and within the industrial infrastructure that are creating more vulnerabilities. It's not just insecure devices, it's more connectivity and things like that. And then one thing we have seen, and I think if anything it's only getting worse, is people. There just aren't enough resources to do all the things people need to do. So those challenges, you know, are making the risks actually, even though we're putting in more protections, the risks are probably growing for attacks. And what that means is you need to do something to secure up your cybersecurity program. Now, what I mean by the external, I put this little slide together, you know, just a trend there. You know, we've seen the landscape go from just hackers to targeted attacks to now I'd say very sophisticated attacks, very targeted, very sophisticated attacks. And there are malware markets out there today that you can buy any kind of an attack you want. In the black market, well, I'll call it the black market. Ransomware is becoming absolutely rampant, I would say. I think, you know, I keep reading about it in the newsletters I get. I just listed a couple there that particularly interested me because the Norsk Hydro, I come from Pittsburgh originally, If you can't tell by my accent, I'm told that people can tell Pittsburghers, so I obviously can't. But I worked in the steel and aluminum industries for many years, so that was an interesting one because what happened there was it was the IT systems that got hit, and it shut down the whole operations. Because if you don't know what you're making, you can't make it. So they shut down all the production. Very costly event. There was a cute one, I call it cute. It was sad, but it was on Friday I read about it. It was a Canadian insurance company. I hadn't seen it before that got hit with ransomware. The cute part was they were insured. They went to an insurance company they had, which was in Great Britain. And they paid out $1 million. Now the Great Britain insurance company's out trying to get their money back, trying to find out how to do it. And you wonder how successful that will be, but hopefully it will be for them. We're certainly seeing more cyber as a weapon. You know, I think there's a lot of political unrest in the world today, and I think you see that being used already in many different ways. And whether you know, when I talk about cybersecurity, I'm not just talking about attacks on plants, that's a key thing, but it's also attacks on IT systems to get into plants, there's all those combinations. So we're seeing a lot more of that, theft of information. We're also seeing, and maybe you've all seen this, but a lot of the attacks are now shifting to the supply chain partners. And when I say that, at ARC we have a practice, supply chain. I used to be involved in that, which was more around transportation and logistics. But in this world, in our cybersecurity world, supply chain means the people providing you services, providing you software, as well as the people who provide services to the manufacturers to build equipment and things like that. Now they're starting to go through those pathways. So it's getting to be very threat from the outside. From the inside, we're doing it to ourselves, but again, for good reason. You'll see us talking about digital transformation all through this event and everything. But, you know, we see changes happening with endpoints. The number and diversity of endpoints is just exploding. You know, it used to be ICS equipment, you know, PLCs, DCS, maybe HMIs, very fixed, structured environment. Now and then we started adding sensors and adding other things. Now today we're connecting them with IT as complete open connectivity and things like that. And you'll see there's, you know, there's new architectures, in fact, on the control systems themselves that are introducing more IT type of products. And I have a slide in another session talking about how that's being built for connectivity and things. We're deploying applications in all new ways. You know, it used to be an endpoint was a box that had a certain application in it. It was well defined, and you focused on protecting the box. Today, that same application, you may have moved it to the cloud. You may put it in a container. It might be in an edge gateway today. So even now you have to focus on protecting it at that level. And I have the thing up there, more unmanageable devices. One thing I see happening is just more things as the suppliers, and these could be people that supply equipment for manufacturers, they are adding more technology to their solutions, and they are saying, don't worry, we'll manage that for you, manage that equipment. Now they also have to manage the security. And when I say it's unmanageable, from the point of view of the end user, you might have known that you had a box before that had a Windows operating system, and this was the app that came from somebody like Siemens or someone, and you knew who to go to, and you knew what to get the patches, saw the vulnerability alerts from DHS and things like that. Now you don't even know what's in the box, let alone, so it's literally unmanageable, but you're the one at risk there. So we see that as a big threat happening. And then from the point of view of connectivity, it's one of my I like that topic a lot. You know, we've originally, again, years ago, we talked about isolating systems, and it was a good thing to do. You know, you have control systems in particular, lock them up, you know, and still a big push for that, using data diodes and things like that. But we've gone from that to saying, no, we have to do more connection. People want more data and things like that. And where we see it headed is not just connectivity, it's really complete integration now of IT, OT, IoT, mobile devices. I mean, you have one device that can talk to 10 different sources of information at one time. And, you know, who knows if any of them are at risk? And it just creates these pathways for attacks. We also see a lot of the things in digital transformation. The thing that's driving value is the ability to have, I'm sorry if I have a habit. I'm just talking to this side of the room. I don't mean to ignore you over there. But the screen's here too. I'll use that as my excuse. But a lot of the apps, the whole value of digital transformation efforts is to kind of change the process. You're trying to change the status quo, and what happens is you do a lot of cross-domain type of applications, things that integrate information from IT, OT, maybe from the cloud, maybe from your partners, all in one thing. And in the past, you might say, well, everybody's got to protect their stuff, but today you need to make sure you have one consistent security policy across all those domains, across those applications, which is not where security was. In the past, it was more focused on protecting boxes and things like that. And then one thing I see happening, at least I do, is I'm seeing there's a lot of technology used in the IT world and networking in particular. Big emphasis now on microsegmentation, on more network access control, identity management. In the ICS world, that wasn't very commonly used because the devices were very static. They were already connected. Your job was just to keep anybody from getting to them. Now it's shifting much more to where those networks, I think, are going to migrate into the OT systems in order to deal with things like more iPads and more mobile devices, more devices that connect in an intermittent way. So anyhow, so that's what we're doing to ourselves. And you can see these create a lot of new vulnerabilities. Now, this is our model. We've written a lot of reports on this. We've shown this to people before in different versions. It's evolved. But we call this the ARC Cybersecurity Maturity Model. It's different than a traditional maturity model, but the basic concept is the bottom, there's the technologies, there's the issues, and I always get complaints. I don't know if Dan Rosinski's in the audience here. I assume he is, but we have our terminology and then we have the NIST terminology. And they're kind of the same but different. And he always says, Sid, why don't you adopt their terminology? But it isn't exactly the same. But anyhow, what that is a picture where this is how we advise companies to implement their security. First thing is we say secure whatever devices you have, the endpoints. Then do your best to defend them from attacks even getting to them. And then the next step is if you're doing that is then you can put in stuff to contain something that does get in. This is isolation and segmentation of networks and things like that. And then you start, so those are passive kind of defenses. That's putting in technology to stop, to manage things. Where we see it shifting now is more to, and it's in the blue. Well, let me click on this for a second. Now, along with those technologies, the point of our model was always technologies are great, and a lot of companies jump out and buy technologies, but that's not enough. If you don't have people, the technologies, the whole thing, the whole value of them erodes. To put in antivirus and not to do profiles, or put in firewalls and not to update the policies is useless. Why? Don't waste your money is what I would tell them. So you need to have certain skills and capabilities to be able to maintain it. And for us, maturity is this combination of technology and people and processes all together. And in the past, we would have said most companies need to go to what I call the old required maturity, which was do that defensive stuff. Today, and particularly in the future, we need to shift that bar way to the right. And what that takes is the stuff that's in orange there, and that's more the reactive type of cybersecurity or active cybersecurity where you're saying, okay, I've done everything I can to defend it, but it's more for the sophisticated attackers. Somebody still gets in, you want to know it fast, get them out, you want to focus on managing impact and things like that. So that's the general trend we see happening, and it's a very dynamic market. It's not, for me as an analyst, it's wonderful. I don't run out of things to talk about or to learn about and things like that. And I won't go over it. I think I've said everything on this slide, but what we're seeing, just a comment, is but companies aren't just sitting still. We are seeing companies doing things to address this growing risk. We do see things like IT-OT convergence. They're recognizing they need resources and they're acting on it. We're seeing bigger use of third-party services and things like that. We're seeing more focus on governance processes on a global basis. IT, when I say global, I mean IT-OT, but it could also be global from a geographic perspective. We're also seeing more emphasis on these, we call them threat detection and response type technologies, something that monitors, it could monitor the endpoints, it can monitor the network communications and things like that, but not just monitor. People have been adopting that for a few years. But now it's shifting more into saying, okay, I know something happened. I need to also have everything in place so that I can respond to it quickly. It's not just enough to say, oh, you've got a problem. You need to have in place everything, people, processes, and technologies to say, deal with it. That's your real goal.